For 3 long years, Ethan Cole had lived alone inside his underground bunker. It was quiet, strong, and safe. At least that's what he told himself every morning when he woke up to the soft hum of the air filters and the blinking green lights on the control panel. Above him was nothing but ruin, a dead planet burned by the war between humans and aliens. He didn't know who started it anymore. Maybe it didn't matter. The skies were poisoned now. The cities were only bones. Ethan's bunker was the last piece of home he had left. The steel walls were covered in dust, the air stale and heavy with metal. He had food packs stacked like bricks, water tanks half full, and a small screen that could still catch broken signals from the surface. Every sound outside made him flinch. Sometimes it was wind, sometimes it was thunder, and sometimes it was something else. He had learned one thing since the war began. Silence meant survival. That night, a terrible storm roared above the wasteland. The old sirens on the surface wailed like ghosts blown by the acid wind. Ethan sat near the main monitor, watching the outside feed from his rusted drone camera. Nothing ever changed out there. Just black clouds and yellow rain that melted anything it touched. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment, thinking maybe he could finally sleep. But then a sound broke the silence. At first it was faint. A small noise between the thunder and the rain. Then it came again, clearer this time. A voice. Ethan froze. His heartbeat slammed against his ribs. He turned the volume knob up, his fingers trembling. Through the static, the voice whispered, weak and desperate, "P, please save me." He stopped breathing. No, it couldn't be. He stared at the monitor. The camera caught movement. A figure stumbling through the rain, small, hunched, and shaking. The acid drops hissed as they hit her skin. Ethan blinked, trying to focus. The figure lifted her head slightly toward the camera, and he saw eyes. Big, bright, and glowing faintly blue through the haze. Not human eyes. He cursed under his breath, pulling back from the screen. No way, he muttered. Not falling for that again. The aliens had used tricks like this before. Fake voices, fake faces, to draw survivors out from hiding. One wrong move and the bunker would be found. Still, that voice, it didn't sound like a soldier's voice. It sounded scared, real. He switched to the thermal scanner. The figure's body heat was weak, almost gone. She was collapsing. He zoomed the camera in. The creature, no, the girl, fell to her knees near the steel door of the bunker, shivering, her hands scraping against the cold metal. "Please," she whispered again, her voice trembling, almost childlike. "Save me." Ethan's breath caught. He told himself to ignore it. He'd survived 3 years by not caring. Every time he'd cared, someone had died. He tried to turn away, but he couldn't. His mind kept showing him his sister, Anna, her voice fading the same way when the aliens took their town. She had screamed for help and no one came. Ethan rubbed his face with both hands. "It's a trap," he whispered. "It has to be." But the camera showed the girl falling face first into the mud, unmoving. The storm grew worse. Lightning tore the sky open, lighting her small shape against the black ground. She wasn't moving. He felt something twist inside his chest. He grabbed his rifle, loading it out of instinct, though he hadn't fired it in years. The barrel was cold. He looked at the heavy bunker door, 12 inches of steel between him and the outside world. Opening it even once meant danger, but leaving her out there meant death. He checked the sensors again. No heat signatures except hers. No drones, no enemy movement. The storm was hiding everything. He whispered to himself. Just one door. One chance. He walked to the control panel, his boots echoing softly on the concrete floor. His hand hovered over the manual override. He hesitated. If she was an alien soldier, he was done. If she was innocent, he was about to save someone's life. "Damn it," he muttered. He pressed the button. The bunker shuddered. Red warning lights flashed across the room. Alert exterior lock disengaged. The siren blared as cold air rushed in. Ethan covered his mouth, coughing as the smell of acid rain filled the chamber. He stepped forward, eyes burning from the sting of the wind. Outside, through the half-open hatch, he saw her, lying on the ground, skin glowing faintly under the stormlight. She looked fragile, almost peaceful. Her silver hair clung to her face, her breathing shallow and ragged. Ethan reached down, his gloves hissing as acid droplets hit them. He slipped his arms under her and lifted her up. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless. She stirred weakly, opening her eyes for a second. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Don't let them find me." Ethan's jaw tightened. He turned and carried her inside. The moment the door sealed shut, the bunker's system screamed in protest. Pressure alarms, contamination warnings, security locks slamming down. The lights flickered. The storm raged outside, and for the first time in 3 years, Ethan realized something terrible. His bunker wasn't safe anymore. The bunker was filled with alarms and flashing red lights. Ethan slammed the heavy door shut, locking out the toxic wind. The girl lay on the floor, her skin still faintly glowing blue under the flickering lights. For a few seconds, he just stood there, breathing hard. The air filters hissed, struggling to clear the acid fumes that slipped in when he opened the hatch. His heartbeat was still racing from the decision he had just made. He looked down at her again. She was small, maybe 16, maybe 20, it was hard to tell. Her silver hair clung to her forehead and her clothes were torn and burnt from the rain. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. Ethan hesitated. His training told him to stay away, but his humanity whispered otherwise. He knelt beside her and pressed his gloved hand near her neck, a faint pulse. "Still alive." He sighed and muttered, "You better not kill me for this." Lifting her gently, he placed her on the small medical cot in the corner of the bunker. The metal creaked under her light weight. He switched on the old scanner and passed it over her body. The machine buzzed and showed strange readings. Not human, but not completely alien either. Something in between. Her breathing was shallow, each inhale sounding painful. Ethan fetched a small bottle of purified water and brought it close to her lips. She stirred weakly, her lips trembling before taking a sip. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe now." Her eyes fluttered open. For the first time, Ethan saw them clearly. Bright blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. They were full of fear, and something else, a relief. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. They're coming," she whispered. "Who's coming?" Ethan asked quickly, leaning closer, but her eyes rolled back and she fell unconscious again. Ethan clenched his jaw. He didn't like mysteries, not anymore. He looked at the scanner again. There was a strange implant visible near her shoulder, pulsing faintly under her skin. Not a bomb, but a tracker. "Damn," he whispered. He rushed to the control screen. The storm outside was still raging, but he saw small flashes of light in the sky like fireflies. Except they weren't insects. They were drones, dozens of them scanning the wasteland. His stomach tightened. They weren't searching for random survivors, though. They were searching for her. He turned off the external power and dimmed every light in the bunker. The room fell into near darkness, only the red glow of the emergency lights painting their faces. He whispered to himself, "You've brought hell right to my door, haven't you?" Minutes passed. The rain hammered against the bunker walls, echoing like drums. The girl moved slightly, murmuring something in her alien tongue. Soft, musical, but full of sadness. Ethan sat beside her, gripping his old rifle, eyes fixed on the radar screen. Outside, faint signals flickered on the scanner. Movement. Multiple contacts. "They found us," he breathed. He stood pacing quickly across the room, thinking. He couldn't fight drones. Not anymore. He didn't have the ammo or the energy. But maybe he could hide. He dragged a heavy metal plate over the hatch, sealing it tighter. The storm would hide most of the heat signature, but if the drones got closer, they'd pick up something. Behind him, the girl suddenly gasped, sitting upright. Her voice trembled. "You shouldn't have opened the door." Ethan turned sharply. "You were dying out there." Her glowing eyes met his, full of guilt. "Now, they'll come for both of us." Lightning flashed outside, followed by the distant roar of engines. The ground shook slightly. Not thunder this time, but the landing of a dropship. Ethan's blood ran cold. "You led them right to me." She grabbed his wrist, weak but desperate. "Please, believe me." "I didn't mean to." "I ran away from them." "From who?" "My people," she whispered. "They hunt anyone who disobeys." Ethan stared at her. The fear in her voice didn't sound fake. It sounded like the truth. But that truth came too late. The sensors flashed again, red and urgent. Something big had landed outside. Through the speaker, a strange metallic voice echoed, distorted, cold, in alien speech. Then a translation came through the bunker's old radio. "Unit 47, target located. No survivors are to remain. Ethan's hands tightened on his rifle. He glanced at the girl. Her eyes widened in terror. The storm outside screamed louder. Inside, the bunker fell silent. The first explosion shook the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan looked toward the door, his jaw set. "I hope," he muttered, "you were worth it." The bunker shook again as another explosion thundered outside. Dust fell from the ceiling like gray snow. Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran to the security panel. The outer cameras flickered. Through the storm, dark shadows moved. The drones were scanning the ground, their red lights sweeping over the metal hatch. "They're right above us," he whispered. The alien girl sat up weakly on the cot, her glowing blue eyes wide with fear. Her breathing was uneven, her voice soft. "They won't stop," she said. "They can track my signal." Ethan turned to her sharply. "That thing in your shoulder, and it's a tracker, isn't it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I stole something. Something they want back. Then we have to remove it," he said. Her eyes widened. "You'll kill me." Ethan picked up his old med kit and threw it open. "No, I won't. Hold still." His hands shook as he powered up the scanner. It wasn't made for alien biology, but it was all he had. He found the small lump near her collarbone, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The metal glowed under her skin. "Stay still," he muttered. She bit her lip, tears in her eyes. "If you do this wrong, then we both die anyway," he interrupted. He took a small blade from the kit and made a shallow cut. The girl gasped but didn't scream. Blue blood, thin and glowing, ran down her skin. Ethan reached in carefully with forceps and pulled out the tiny device. No larger than a coin, but alive with red light. The moment it left her body, it beeped sharply. Ethan cursed, dropped it into a lead container and slammed the lid shut. The signal blinked out. The girl exhaled, collapsing back against the pillow. "You saved me." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "They'll still come." He sealed the container and turned off every power source again. The lights dimmed until only the faint blue glow of her skin lit the room. For a second, Ethan's heart slowed. It was quiet, almost peaceful. Then she spoke again, her voice fragile but curious. "Why did you help me?" "You didn't have to." Ethan didn't answer at first. He sat on the floor across from her, staring at the old photo taped to the wall, his sister smiling in a field before the war. He said quietly, "I heard you crying. I thought of someone I couldn't save before." She looked at the photo. "Your family?" "Was," he said simply. "They're gone." For a moment, silence filled the room. The storm outside softened, the wind howling through broken ruins. Finally, the girl spoke again. "My name is Lyra." Ethan looked up. "Lyra," he repeated slowly. "You're from the Zilari, aren't you?" "The ones who started the war." Her face twisted in pain. "Not all of us wanted war," she said softly. "My tribe refused to fight. They burned us for it." Ethan studied her, trying to find the lie, but there was none. Her voice carried the weight of truth and loss. He sighed, rubbing his face. "You really are in trouble." "I escaped their ship," she whispered. "I have information. Proof that their leader plans to destroy the last human city still hidden underground." Ethan froze. "What proof?" She weakly reached into her torn sleeve and pulled out a small data crystal, faintly glowing blue. "This," she said. "It has the codes to their main weapon, but they'll kill anyone who holds it." Ethan stared at the crystal in disbelief. "You're telling me you ran through an acid storm to bring this here?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I didn't know where else to go. Humans are the only ones left who might stop them." Ethan stood slowly, pacing across the floor. His thoughts raced. He could destroy the crystal and stay safe, or help her and risk everything. He had spent years avoiding the war, but now the war had come straight to his door. The silence was broken by a new sound, a low hum deeper than the drones. Ethan turned to the monitor. A large shadow moved across the camera feed. Not a drone this time, but a hunter ship descending through the storm. Its engines glowed like blue fire. "They found us again," he said. Lyra's voice trembled. "They'll burn this place." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we don't stay." He pulled open a hidden floor panel, revealing a dark tunnel beneath the bunker. "It's an escape shaft," he said. "Leads to the old metro tunnels." She looked at him weakly. "You'll really help me?" He looked down at her, the alien girl who should have been his enemy, now shivering and afraid. "Yeah," he said finally. "But don't make me regret it." Lyra gave a small, tired smile. "You won't." The next explosion shook the bunker so hard the lights burst. The ceiling cracked, dust pouring down like rain. Ethan grabbed the data crystal, shoved it into his pocket, and lifted Lyra into his arms. As they dropped into the dark escape shaft, fire tore through the bunker above them. The only home Ethan had known for years collapsed, but he didn't look back. Because now the fight wasn't about survival anymore. It was about hope. The tunnel below the bunker was cold, wet, and narrow. The air smelled of rust and old dust. Ethan's boots splashed through shallow water as he carried Lyra in his arms. Behind them, the bunker groaned and cracked, collapsing under the force of the attack above. Flashes of light flickered down through the broken shaft. Explosions. Drones scanning for heat signatures. Ethan didn't stop to look back. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice rough. Lyra's head rested weakly against his shoulder. "They'll send hunters," she whispered. "Machines that track by heartbeats." Ethan glanced over his shoulder, his jaw tightening. "Then we better move fast." He followed the dim tunnel lights that still worked, old bulbs flickering from the last bits of stored energy. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until only the sound of dripping water and their breathing filled the dark. After a while, Ethan stopped near a collapsed section and set Lyra down gently. She looked pale, her blue glow fading. "Rest here," he said. "I'll check the path ahead." He climbed over the rubble, flashlight cutting through the dust. Beyond the wall, the tunnel opened into a wide underground station. Broken signs, shattered glass, old trains half buried in debris. But something else caught his eye. A faint red light blinking across the station floor. A drone beacon. Ethan's stomach dropped. "They're already here." He rushed back to Lyra. "We have to move, now!" She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Ethan pulled her arm over his shoulder and half carried her through the tunnel. Behind them, the air filled with a low humming sound, like metal wings cutting through the air. "Drones," she gasped. Ethan turned and fired his rifle down the tunnel. The shot echoed like thunder. Sparks burst as one drone exploded, lighting up the walls in flashes of red and white. But there were more. Dozens of them. Their glowing eyes closing in fast. Ethan grabbed a small metal sphere from his belt and threw it. Flash bomb! The tunnel lit up like a small sun. The drones screamed, their sensors blinded. Ethan used the moment to pull Lyra through a service door. They stumbled into another chamber, a maintenance control room filled with old screens and dead machines. Ethan slammed the door shut and jammed it with a steel rod. Lyra leaned against the wall, panting. "You fight like a soldier." "I was one," Ethan said quietly. "Before the world ended." She looked at him with soft eyes. "And you still are." For a moment, silence fell between them. The storm outside had faded into the distance. But the humming was still there. The hunters hadn't stopped. Ethan checked the screens. One of the old cameras still worked, showing the tunnel outside. The drones had stopped moving. They hovered, silent and still, like they were waiting for something. Then, from the shadows, a new figure stepped forward, tall, armored, its body covered in silver plating with glowing blue veins, half machine, half living creature. The hunter Lyra's face turned pale. "That's not a drone. That's a commander." Ethan's grip on his rifle tightened. "Can it find us?" She nodded slowly. "It can feel the echo of my heartbeat." He looked around the room. There was only one exit, a maintenance shaft leading down into deeper tunnels. But going lower meant heading into the dead zone, the old labs that hadn't been entered in decades. Still, it was their only chance. He turned back to Lyra. "You trust me?" Her eyes met his. "I already do," he smiled faintly. "Good, then hang on." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the shaft. The moment he opened it, the hunter turned its head. Through the camera, Ethan saw its glowing eyes focus straight at them. "It knows," Lyra whispered. "Then we run." They climbed down the narrow ladder, the metal cold under their hands. Above, the hunter's steps echoed, slow, heavy, unhurried. Halfway down, a blast shook the walls. The door above shattered. The hunter had found the room. "Go," Ethan shouted. They dropped the last few feet and hit the ground hard. Ethan rolled over, gasping. He looked up. The hunter was looking down the shaft, its blue eyes burning like fire. Lyra reached out, placing her glowing hand on the wall. Symbols appeared, glowing faintly as she whispered in her language. The ground beneath them shifted, ancient machinery coming alive. A hidden panel slid open behind them, revealing a dark corridor glowing with old blue lights. Ethan stared in disbelief. "What is this place?" Lyra looked at him. "The old world's last secret." Above, the hunter roared, tearing through the shaft. Ethan grabbed her hand. "Then let's find out before it finds us." They ran into the glowing corridor as the walls sealed shut behind them, the thunder of the hunter echoing through the dark. For now, they were alive. But Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The tunnel behind them sealed with a hiss, and darkness swallowed everything. Only a few blue lights glowed faintly along the walls, old emergency lamps that still had life after all these years. Ethan leaned against the cold metal wall, gasping for breath. His body ached, his hands shaking from the climb and the fight. Beside him, Lyra knelt on the ground, her glowing hand still pressed against the floor. The air was heavy, damp, and filled with a strange humming sound, like something deep below the earth was still awake. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead. "Where are we?" Lyra stood slowly, her eyes scanning the dark corridor. "We're in the lower level of the Human Defense Network," she said quietly. "Your kind built this during the First War." Ethan frowned. "How do you know that?" She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Because my people helped design it before the peace broke." That answer made his stomach twist. He looked down the corridor. Rusted doors lined both sides, many half open, some welded shut. Strange markings were scratched into the metal, as if someone tried to warn others away. A distant echo traveled through the tunnel, the faint metallic growl of the hunter above them. Lyra turned her head sharply. "It's tracking us, even through the metal." Ethan grabbed his rifle, checking the charge. "Then we keep moving." They walked deeper into the tunnel, their steps echoing softly. The lights flickered, revealing old signs: Sector 9 Control, Energy Core Access, Biolab 12. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. At the end of the corridor, a wide blast door stood half open, frozen in place. Ethan squeezed through first, his flashlight cutting through the thick fog inside. Beyond the door lay a massive chamber, walls covered in old human tech, cables hanging like vines. In the center stood a broken platform surrounded by glowing tubes filled with strange green liquid. Lyra stepped closer, staring at the empty tubes. "This is where they built the last defense units," she said softly. "Machines mixed with human DNA." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You mean cyborgs?" She nodded. "They called them guardians. My people feared them because they were too strong, too human." He looked around, his voice low. "So that's what your empire was afraid of." "Not humans, but what we could become." Lyra didn't answer. She just touched one of the empty tubes, her face full of sadness. "We thought destroying you would bring peace, but it only made the galaxy quieter, emptier." Ethan looked at her, the anger inside him fading for a moment. "You talk like someone who regrets it." "I do," she whispered. The ground suddenly shook, dust falling from the ceiling. A loud metallic screech echoed through the tunnel behind them. Ethan's eyes widened. "It's here." The hunter had broken through the last barrier. The sound of its claws against the metal floor grew louder, slow and patient. Lyra's hand trembled. "It won't stop. It's linked to the hive. Even if you kill it, more will come." Ethan looked around the chamber, spotting an old control panel at the far side. "Maybe we don't need to kill it," he said. "Maybe we can lose it." He ran to the panel and started pressing buttons. The screen flickered to life, old text scrolling across it. "Underground Transit Network offline." He hit a few more switches. The system buzzed weakly and a low rumble shook the floor. Somewhere nearby, gears turned and air whooshed through old pipes. A heavy metal door on the far side began to open, revealing a faint light. A hidden train tunnel stretching into darkness. Lyra stared. "That's an escape line." Ethan nodded. It was used to move command units during the war. The hunter's roar echoed through the doorway, closer now. Its red eyes glowed through the fog. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Go!" They ran across the chamber, boots splashing through puddles of green fluid. The hunter smashed through the doorway, firing bolts of plasma that burned holes into the walls. Ethan turned and fired back, his rifle blazing. Sparks flew as one of his shots hit the hunter's chest and it stumbled but didn't fall. "Faster!" he shouted. They leapt onto the small transport platform just as it powered up. Lyra slammed her hand against the control pad, her alien symbols lighting up across the screen. The platform groaned, then shot forward into the tunnel with a blast of wind. The hunter lunged. Its claw scraped the edge, tearing metal, but it missed them. As the platform sped away into the darkness, Ethan looked back one last time. The hunter's red eyes faded behind them, swallowed by shadow. For the first time in hours, he allowed himself to breathe. Lyra sat beside him, shaking. "You saved me again." He gave a small smile. "Yeah, well, you owe me one." She looked at him quietly. "You don't understand, Ethan. What I carry, what's in that crystal, it could end this war forever. Or destroy everything left." Ethan's smile faded. He looked out into the endless dark tunnel ahead. "Then we better make sure it falls into the right hands." The wind howled around them as the platform raced deeper into the unknown. Behind them, the sound of pursuit faded, but above ground, the Empire's fleet was already moving. The real hunt had just begun. The transport platform sped through the dark tunnels for what felt like hours. Ethan stared into the black ahead, the wind howling past his face. Beside him, Lyra sat quietly, her hands gripping the metal edge, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. Finally, the platform slowed. It screeched to a stop inside a massive underground station, larger than any they had seen before. Rusted rails stretched into the distance, and walls were covered in faded symbols of the old human military. Ethan stepped off first, rifle raised. The air was still and dry, heavy with dust. "This place looks untouched," he said. Lyra followed, her blue eyes scanning the walls. "No one has been here for decades," she whispered. "But something still breathes here." They walked across the empty hall. The silence was almost too quiet, the kind that made every footstep sound like thunder. Then in the far corner, a faint hum began. A soft mechanical voice broke the stillness. "Welcome back, Commander Ethan Gray." Ethan froze. His heart skipped. What did it say? The voice came again, calm and polite. "Authorization recognized. Human command protocol active. Defense AI aerial online." A blue hologram flickered to life in the center of the room, the shape of a woman made of light, her face kind but distant. Ethan lowered his rifle slightly. "You've got to be kidding me." Lyra stared in awe. "Your machines are still alive." The hologram turned her gaze toward Ethan. "Status report, Earth Defense Network offline. Remaining human population, 4%. Query, why have you returned, Commander?" Ethan swallowed hard. He hadn't heard his rank in years. "I didn't come back," he said slowly. "The war's over. Humanity lost." The AI's eyes dimmed. "War not over. Enemy signal detected. Priority threat approaching." Lyra stepped forward, clutching the small data crystal. "She's talking about the hunter fleet," she said. "They're coming for me, and for this." The hologram turned toward her. "Non-human biological form detected. Explain presence." Ethan raised a hand. "She's not the enemy. She brought something that could end this." The AI's gaze flickered between them. "Show the object." Lyra hesitated, then held out the glowing crystal. Blue light from the hologram scanned it. "Data recognized. Access code to Heaven's Torch. This weapon can destroy the Zalari fleet orbiting Earth." Ethan stared. "A weapon?" "Orbital ion cannon array, currently offline. Activation requires human command key and biometric link." Ethan looked at Lyra. "If we turn that thing on, we can stop them." Lyra shook her head quickly. "You don't understand. That weapon was built to wipe out entire worlds. It won't just kill my fleet. It will kill every living thing in orbit. Thousands of my people who never wanted this war." Ethan's throat tightened. The choice felt heavier than the rifle in his hands. He turned back to the AI. "Is there another way?" "Alternate option. Upload data to Peace Network. Transmit truth of war to all channels." Lyra's eyes widened. "If the truth spreads, the Empire will lose control. Soldiers might refuse orders." Ethan thought for a moment. "So either we destroy them or we expose them." The AI flickered. "Warning, hunter unit detected in sector. Time to contact, 5 minutes." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we decide fast." He looked at Lyra, her tired face glowing faintly in the dark. "I've spent years hiding," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time to do something that matters." Lyra stepped closer. If you activate the weapon, you become like them. But if you show them the truth, you might save more than just humans. The ground shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The sound of the hunter echoed through the tunnels again. Louder, closer, unstoppable. Ethan looked at the control console glowing beside the hologram. 2 options flashed on the screen. Activate weapon, upload data. He stared at both. His hand trembled. Then he looked at Lyra, this strange, fragile creature who had risked everything for hope. "I trust you," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "Then choose mercy." Ethan slammed the second button. The chamber filled with light. Streams of data surged through the cables, racing upward toward the surface satellites. The AI's voice rose above the noise. "Broadcast in progress. All channels open." Outside, somewhere in the storming skies, alien ships received the signal. Videos, records, images of the war's beginning. How it wasn't humans who started it, but Zalari leaders hungry for control. Lyra watched in silence, tears running down her glowing cheeks. Then the wall behind them exploded. The hunter burst in, massive, burning, its claws dripping with molten metal. Ethan shielded Lyra as the blast threw them backward. The creature roared, its voice mechanical and hateful. But above its roar came another sound, 1,000 signals echoing through the air as soldiers across the galaxy heard the truth. The hunter froze mid-step, its eyes flickering in confusion. Lyra whispered, "It's working." Ethan gripped his rifle, standing again despite the pain. "Then let's finish this." Smoke and fire filled the control chamber. The walls burned with sparks of blue electricity as the hunter roared, stepping through the shattered doorway. Its eyes glowed like molten stars, scanning the room for movement. Ethan staggered to his feet, coughing through the dust. His body ached from the explosion, but he still held his rifle tight. Beside him, Lyra lay on the floor, weak and bleeding, the glowing blue of her skin flickering like a fading flame. The AI's voice crackled through the static. "Broadcast 78% complete. Global transmission unstable." Ethan's eyes darted to the console. If the broadcast failed now, all their sacrifice would be for nothing. The hunter raised its arm, energy charging in its weapon. Ethan shouted, "Move," and dove behind a fallen support beam. The plasma bolt struck the wall, sending shards of molten metal flying across the room. Lyra tried to crawl toward the console, her trembling hand reaching out. "It has to finish." Ethan fired 3 quick bursts, the shot sparking against the hunter's armor. It barely flinched. The thing was more machine than flesh now, unstoppable, perfect and cold. He ducked again, whispering under his breath, "Think, Ethan. Think?" The AI flickered again. "Commander, power core unstable. Manual override possible. Where?" he barked. "Beneath the platform." Ethan looked toward the glowing floor beneath the console. The hunter was blocking the path. He glanced at Lyra, her face pale but determined. "I'll distract it," she whispered weakly. "You can't even stand," he snapped. But she smiled faintly. "I don't need to." She raised her hand, blue energy forming between her fingers. The same alien power he had seen when she opened the doors before, only stronger, brighter. The hunter turned toward her, sensing the energy pulse. Ethan saw his chance. He sprinted across the floor, sliding under falling debris. Plasma bolts tore through the air above him, missing by inches. He reached the power core, a glowing circle of light, and ripped open the panel. Inside, red wires and sparks screamed with energy. He slammed his hand onto the manual lever. The AI's voice echoed, "Warning. Manual override will overload primary circuit. Operator survival probability 12%. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Guess I'll take my chances." He pulled the lever, a deep hum filled the room. The broadcast towers above ground flared to life, blasting data through every frequency, every channel. The truth was out. The war, the lies, the experiments. Billions would see it now. The hunter roared, staggering as the energy field distorted its systems. Its armor cracked with blue lightning. Lyra's voice called out, "Ethan! It's working!" He turned, but the hunter lunged again, striking her aside. She hit the wall hard, sliding down in pain. Ethan's blood ran cold. He raised his rifle, shouting, "Get away from her!" He fired until the clip ran dry, every shot aimed at the glowing cracks in its armor. The creature stumbled, sparks flying. Then with a final roar it charged him. Ethan met it halfway. The two collided in a burst of fire and metal. He jammed the broken rifle barrel straight into its chest and slammed his fist down on the overloaded power cable beside him. A blinding flash erupted. The explosion threw both of them across the chamber. The hunter crashed into the wall, its body breaking apart. Ethan fell near the console, every muscle screaming in pain. The AI's voice faded in and out. Broadcast complete. Signal confirmed. Across all colonies, Ethan smiled weakly, coughing. Good. That's good. He turned his head toward Lyra. She was lying near the console, her hand still glowing faintly. She opened her eyes and whispered, "You did it." He shook his head slowly. "No, we did." The light from the hologram dimmed. The hunter's broken body stopped moving. The room grew silent, just the soft hum of machines finishing their work. Ethan tried to stand, but his legs gave out. Lyra crawled to him and caught his hand. Her touch was warm, gentle, almost human. She smiled weakly. The galaxy will know the truth now, maybe. They'll stop fighting. Ethan looked at her through the flickering light, and maybe they'll learn what it means to be human. Her blue eyes shimmered with tears. "Mercy," she whispered. "That's what it means," he managed a faint laugh. "You're learning fast." She leaned closer, pressing her forehead against his. "You taught me." Above them, through the cracks in the ceiling, the first rays of sunlight broke through. Real sunlight, shining down on a dying world that suddenly didn't feel so empty. The AI's final words echoed softly. "Hope restored. Humanity survives." Ethan closed his eyes, smiling as the light washed over them both. For the first time in years, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't just surviving. He had chosen to save, not destroy. And that choice, and the human choice, changed everything.